And those headlights behind them, they were not there a second ago. Across the United States, there are roads that do not show up on any map, exits that lead nowhere, and towns that vanish when you blink. Some say it is just bad luck. Others say it is something older, something that never left the asphalt. These are not myths. These are real encounters told by the ones who survived. You are watching Mr. Nightvale, and these are 11 real horror stories from the most haunted roads in the United States. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell, because after tonight, you might start checking your mirrors a little more carefully. They told her Route 50 was called the loneliest road in America. Rachel thought that sounded perfect. No distractions, no traffic, just silence and sky. She was on day 3 of her solo road trip, driving east across Nevada with nothing but podcasts and energy drinks keeping her company. It was mid-October, and the desert air had that strange mix of dry heat and sudden cold that made your skin feel like paper. She had passed through Ely an hour ago, and now there was nothing but hills, telephone poles, and endless asphalt. Her car was fine, a used blue Honda Civic with a rattling glove box and half a tank of gas. Everything was quiet until she saw the first sign. It was handmade, wooden, nailed to a post on the side of the road, letters carved unevenly in red paint. Mile 187 is not yours. Rachel blinked. She didn't remember seeing that before she checked the map. She was still on Route 50, still on track, still safe. She shook it off. Probably some desert art thing. People got weird out here. She kept driving. 20 minutes later, she passed another sign. This one was burned at the edges. The paint was older, faded, like it had been there for decades. Turn around before she sees you. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. A chill ran up her spine, but she tried to laugh it off. She said out loud, "Real funny, Nevada, real welcoming." But inside, she was uneasy. Another 10 minutes, and the sky began to change. The light went dull. The sun was still up, but the color had drained from the landscape. Rocks turned gray. The sky turned a sickly pale yellow. Rachel turned off the podcast. The silence felt heavier than the voices up ahead. She saw something in the road. At first, she thought it was a deer, or maybe roadkill. But as she got closer, she realized it was standing a woman middle of the lane, wearing a long white dress that dragged behind her like fog. Rachel slammed the brakes. The car screeched, tires burning. She stopped just feet away from the woman, heart pounding. The woman didn't move. Her head was down, black hair covering her face, arms at her sides. Rachel rolled down her window a crack and shouted, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" No response. The woman began to move, but not toward the car. She turned around and walked into the desert barefoot. Slow. Rachel stayed in the car for 5 full minutes, frozen. Then she pulled around the spot. Carefully, she looked out into the open land. But the woman was gone, just vanished. No footprints, no trail, nothing. She kept driving faster. Now and then the radio turned on by itself, white noise, static. Then a voice, not a broadcast, a whisper. "You were warned." Rachel gasped and shut off the radio completely. Her hands were shaking, but she kept driving. The desert was changing again. The road cracked in places where it hadn't before. The telephone poles were bent at strange angles, and the mile markers were counting backward. She saw one that read mile 190, then mile 188, then mile 187. The car sputtered. The engine light blinked, even though her gas was still at 1/4. She pulled over slowly, right next to the sign that said mile 187. It was an old green marker, rust eating away the corners. The numbers were smeared like something had tried to scratch them off. Rachel turned off the car and stepped out. The wind hit her like ice. She was in the middle of nowhere. No signal, no sound. She took a few steps into the desert. just to look around, and that's when she heard it, laughter high, soft, almost childlike, but distant, carried on the wind. She turned around, and the woman was standing behind her car, closer than before, same white dress, same black hair. But now her head was tilted up. Rachel could almost see her face, almost. She jumped back into the car and locked the doors, turned the key. The car wouldn't start. She tried again, nothing. She looked up. The woman was walking toward the car, slow, unblinking. Rachel hit the horn, slammed the dashboard, panicked, and then the woman vanished again. Just disappeared mid-step. Rachel finally got the engine to turn over. The car roared to life, and she floored it. Tires kicked up dust as she peeled away from mile 187. Her breath, ragged, eyes darting between mirrors. She kept driving for another hour. No signs, no towns, no other cars. Just empty desert. Then out of nowhere, her phone buzzed. No signal, but a notification, one new image in her camera roll. She hadn't taken any photos. She opened it. It was a picture, a blurry image taken from inside the car. From the back seat, she could see the back of her head, both hands on the steering. Wheeling behind her, in the back seat, was the woman in white. Asterisk. Rachel dropped the phone like it was burning. The image stayed in her mind like an afterimage, burned into her eyes. The woman in her back seat, looking straight into the camera, looking straight at her. She swerved to the side of the road again. This time not because of fear, but because she was shaking too much to keep driving. She climbed out of the car, breathing hard. Gravel crunching under her feet. She checked the back seat, empty. Nothing but a backpack and an old road map. She opened the trunk, checked the whole car. Nothing. No woman, no ghost, no trace. But the fear stayed, pulsing through her skin, filling her mouth with that metallic taste of panic. She climbed back in and locked the doors. Her phone buzzed again. Another notification, another photo. Her breath caught this time. It was a picture of her standing outside the car, taken from behind. But she had not seen anyone. No one else was there. There was no sound, no movement, no shadow, and yet the photo existed. Someone was watching. She threw the phone on the passenger seat and started driving again, faster than before, pushing the engine until it whined beneath her. Every few minutes she glanced in the mirror, expecting to see a white dress, black hair, an open mouth with no face. The desert never ended, and the sun never moved. It stayed in the same position, low on the horizon, as if the day was frozen, locked in some twilight loop. She passed another mile marker at mile 186. Rachel blinked. That should have been behind her. She had already passed that hours ago. Then another sign, mile 185. She slammed the brakes again. She got out, walked up to the sign, touched it. Was cold, real, rusted at the edges, the numbers smeared. Just like before. She turned around and the car was gone. She stood on the side of the road, surrounded by desert. No vehicle, no tire marks, no dust trail, nothing, just her. And the silence. She screamed. No echo, no sound. The scream vanished into the air like it had been swallowed. Then a noise, soft whispering from behind the sign. She walked around it slowly, expecting a speaker, a trick, a wind chime. But what she saw made her knees buckle. Behind the sign was a shallow pit. It inside the pit, bones, dozens of them. Some broken, some clawing upward as if they had been buried alive. Hand skulls, pieces of clothing rotting in the dirt, and at the bottom, a familiar face, her only mirror image of Rachel. Eyes closed, skin pale, lips blue. She staggered back, fell onto the gravel. She crawled away, hands scraping against stone. But the face in the pit opened its eyes and smiled. Rachel stood and ran. No direction, no road. Just running across desert sand and dry brush. The landscape twisted around her, cactuses bending as she passed, rocks shifting places behind her. the sky growing darker with every step, and then she stopped. Ahead of her was a gas station. Old flickering lights, one car parked outside. She ran to it, barged inside, and froze it. Car, her same blue Honda, parked like it had been there all along. Inside, a woman stood behind the counter, gray hair, blank stare. Rachel approached her, begged for help, said she was being followed, chased, that something was wrong. The woman only said one thing: you were not supposed to stop at mile 187. Rachel backed away slowly, but the gas station doors slammed shut behind her, locked. The lights flickered overhead. The walls began to hum low and deep like an earthquake in slow motion. The shelves tipped over, cans rolled across the floor, glass cracked. Rachel turned to run, but the woman was in front of her now, not the old woman, the one in white hair still covering her face, dress soaked in something dark, hands twitching like marionette strings. Rachel screamed, but the woman did not move. She only lifted one arm and pointed behind Rachel, a mirror in the reflection. Rachel saw herself, but she was not alone. Behind her in the mirror stood the woman, smiling with no eyes, no mouth, just skin stretched tight across bone. The mirror shattered. Rachel blacked out. She woke up in her car, seatbelt still on, engine idling. The sun was rising. She checked the clock, 7 a.m. She was parked outside a gas station near Ely, a real one, modern, clean, open. People were around, filling up cars, buying snacks. Everything looked normal. She stepped out cautiously, looked at the building. No flickering lights, no strange women, no signs. She got back in the car, checked her phone. No photos, nothing strange. She looked at her GPS, Route 50 heading east. Everything was fine, but as she merged back onto the highway, she passed a sign on the right. It was old, wooden, faded, and it read mile 187. She did not look back. She did not speak, but her phone buzzed one last time. She opened the gallery. There was one photo taken from behind her seat of her driving, with a pale hand reaching out from under the passenger seat, and the caption read, "We warned you." Damien had driven this stretch of highway 191 more times than he could count. It was a quiet road at night, mostly flat, empty, and quiet enough to forget the world for a while. He liked it that way. No radio, no phone calls, just the soft hum of the tires and the feeling of being alone under the stars. It was nearly 3 a.m. His shift had ended over an hour ago. He was heading north back toward Clifton, where he rented a small trailer near the hills. He knew every curve of this road by heart, every landmark, every sign, every crack in the asphalt. So when he saw a gas station lit up on the right side of the highway, he hit the brakes, because it should not have been there. There were no stations this far out. Not until the state line. He pulled over to the shoulder, put the truck in park, and stared at the building. It looked like something from the 50s, old glass windows, an overhead sign barely hanging on. The lights flickered in and out like a dying neon bug. Zapper sat there for a minute, engine idling, trying to decide if he was just tired or if something was actually off. Eventually, curiosity won. He turned into the dirt lot and parked beside an ancient-looking pickup truck that looked like it had not moved in years. There was no one at the pumps, no movement inside the store, just a buzzing light and a faint hum like a refrigerator running behind a wall. He stepped inside. Bell above the door did not ring, but the door creaked loud enough to make him flinch. Inside, the air was heavy, still, and smelled like dust, and old motor oil shelves were lined with products that looked untouched: rusty cans of beans, expired snacks, dust-covered bottles of soda. Behind the counter stood a man. He looked about 60, wearing a faded button shirt and a trucker hat that had seen better days. He did not speak. He just nodded once, as if to say, "Welcome, Damien." gave a polite nod back, and walked the first aisle. He did not need anything, but something about the place made him want to walk it anyway. Like he was supposed to. He picked up a soda. It felt warm in his hand. No fizz when he shook it. Turned around to ask the man a question. But the man was gone. The counter was empty. Damien blinked. Looked around. There was no back door behind the counter. No hallway, no door at all. He took a slow step back and then heard a sound from one of the aisles, like metal scraping across the floor. He moved toward it, his boots creaking with each step, and saw a cart, old Rusty, moving on its own. Just a slow roll, until it hit the end of the aisle and stopped. He stared at it, felt his heartbeat rise. Then he heard another sound, this time behind him. Whisper so soft he could not tell what it said, only that it was meant for him. He spun around. No one. But the lights were dimmer now, and the front door was gone, replaced with a solid wall of old planks and rusted nails. He took a step back, almost tripped over the cart, and the whisper came again. Closer. He turned toward the back of the store. There was a hallway, now dark and narrow, lit only by a single red bulb that hung low and swayed even though there was no wind. Something told him not to go down there. Something screamed it in his head, but his feet moved anyway down the hallway, each step echoing louder than it should, like the walls were narrowing behind him, swallowing him. At the end of the hall was a door, black, unmarked. He reached for the knob. It was ice cold, and as soon as he touched it, the whisper turned into a scream, high-pitched like a woman, in agony, echoing from all around him. He yanked the door open, and everything stopped. Silence again. But what he saw made his breath catch. It was a room, but not like the rest of the store. It looked like a hospital room, clean white, with a single bed in the center and someone lying in it. Stepped closer. The body was covered in a sheet, but he could see the outline of a woman, small still. He reached out, hesitated, then pulled the sheet down and froze. It was his mother, but she had been dead for years. She looked just like he remembered, before the cancer, before the pain. Her eyes were closed, her lips slightly parted, as if she was dreaming. He stepped back, shaking his head. This is not real. This is not real. Whisper came again behind him, closer than ever. He turned around, and standing in the doorway was the man from the counter, but now his eyes were gone, just black sockets, weeping something dark and thick. His smile stretched too wide, teeth too long, too many. He raised one hand and pointed back at the bed. Damien turned back. The bed was empty, the sheet stained red, and in the corner of the room a woman stood in a hospital gown, head down, hands twitching. She looked up, and it was not his mother. It was something else wearing her skin. Asterisk. Damien stumbled backward, his hands shaking, mouth open, but no words came out. The thing that had his mother's face was smiling now, not a human smile, but a crack in her skin stretching from ear to ear, revealing blackness underneath. She began to walk toward him, slow, barefoot. The sound of her steps echoed louder than they should, as if the floor itself was warning him. He turned to run. The hallway behind him had changed. It was longer now, twisting like a spine made of rotting wood. No lights, only that red glow pulsing from somewhere deep below. He ran. The walls bent inward, narrowing, scraping his shoulders. He could feel something brushing his back, long fingers, or maybe ropes. He did not stop. He reached the end of the hall, but the door was gone. Just smooth wall. He slammed his fists against it, yelled for help, called out to anyone, anything, and the wall opened like flesh, splitting, peeling into a new room. He fell through, onto cold tile. This room was different. No longer the store, no longer the hospital. It was a border checkpoint. But empty, abandoned filing cabinets turned over, papers scattered across the floor. The window blinds flapped as if wind was blowing through, but there was no breeze. He recognized it. This was the station he had worked at 5 years ago, before he left. The job after the accident, he tried to steady his breathing, tried to remember what was real, but then the radio on the desk crackled to life. His old call sign echoed through the static. Unit 12. Come in, Unit 12. We found her. Damien froze, he remembered. That night, the missing girl, the one who wandered across the desert after her mother died in a crash. She had been lost for 2 days. No food, no water when they found her. She was staring at the sun, mouth full of dirt, eyes completely white. She had whispered something before collapsing a word. Damien never forgot Borderlist. Radio crackled again. Unit 12. Why did you leave her? Why did you leave her alone? He backed away from the desk. But the lights above began to burst one by one. Pop, 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 glass falling like rain. Then the checkpoint doors slammed open. The wind howled, but it was not wind, it was voices. Screaming, crying, begging. A black fog poured through the entrance, thick like smoke, but with weight. It crawled across the floor like it was alive, and through the fog came footsteps. The girl, but she had grown, her limbs longer, stretched unnaturally, head tilted as if broken. Her mouth was stitched shut. Her eyes were gone, but she saw him. He knew she saw him. She reached out with one hand. Damien turned and ran again out the back of the building into open desert. The land was wrong. No hills, no cacti, no moon, just flat sand and dead sky. He ran until his legs gave out, collapsed onto his knees, and screamed into the dark. Then he saw lights. A truck, his truck parked right in front of him like it had always been there. He climbed in, started the engine. It roared to life like nothing had happened. The GPS blinked on. Welcome back, Damien. Continue route on Highway 191. He stared at the screen, then looked into the rearview mirror. She was sitting in the back seat, the girl, head low, hands folded like a sleeping child. He did not turn around. He did not speak. He just drove. The highway stretched out in front of him, smooth, endless. The sky began to lighten, hints of sunrise painting the clouds, and then a sign appeared. Last stop before the border. He passed it behind him in the mirror. The girl faded into shadow. Gone again, but not forgotten, never forgotten. He drove until the sun rose fully, until the air was warm again, until the desert looked normal. He pulled over at a real gas station, this time modern, alive. He got out, stretched, looked around. Nothing strange. He checked the back seat, empty. He opened his phone. One new photo was a picture of him, taken from outside the car while he was driving. In the image he looked afraid, and behind him, painted across the glass of the back window, was a single word: Borderless asterisk. Derek Haynes had been driving trucks for over 2 decades. He'd seen nearly every stretch of road from Portland to Miami, survived snowstorms in Utah, and once swerved to avoid a runaway cow outside Kansas City. But nothing in 20 years prepared him for what happened on Interstate 80 in southern Wyoming. Just past the Red Desert. It was early October. The air was crisp, the skies clear, and Derek had picked up a load of medical supplies in Salt Lake City, bound for Omaha. He'd planned to drive through the night, as he often did. He liked the solitude, the hum of tires on endless asphalt, and the distant flicker of stars over flat land around 2:17 a.m. His eyes were heavy but alert. He had coffee in the cup holder, an open pack of menthols by the gear shift, and a soft classic rock playlist humming low. The highway was empty. Not even a flicker of headlights ahead or behind him. Just black road and desert silence. When he saw the exit sign, exit 212 Hollis Junction, 1 mile. He raised an eyebrow. That didn't sound familiar. He'd driven this route dozens of times. There was no Hollis Junction anywhere between Rawlins and Laramie still. The sign looked legit, green, reflective, weathered like any other, and a mile later, there it was again. Exit 212 Hollis Junction with the white arrow pointing right. He was tired and figured maybe it was a detour or some tiny access road he never noticed. He tapped the GPS. No ramp, just a clean, uninterrupted stretch of I-80. Curiosity got the better of him. Hell with it. He muttered and flicked on his signal. The exit ramp came up fast, a gentle curve into darkness. No lights, no shoulder markings, just narrow asphalt surrounded by desert scrub. The ramp descended gradually, cutting deeper into what looked like an old industrial road. No signs, no town. Just two faded yellow lines leading into pitch black. He drove for maybe 2 minutes, then 5. Then something strange happened. His headlights flickered, just a blink, like power hiccuped in the cab. His dashboard reset for a second, then came back. He thought it might be a short in the alternator, but then his CB radio crackled, not static words. A garbled voice turned back. "Not for you." Derek froze. He checked the CB. It was on channel 19. He hadn't touched it. The voice was gone. He sat up straighter, flicked on his high beams, and slowed to a crawl. The road narrowed further. The blacktop faded into cracked concrete up ahead. He saw lights, dim, yellow, flickering like gas lanterns. Buildings, old buildings, not houses, shacks. A rusted sign creaked in the wind. "Welcome to Hollis Junction, Est 1914. The town looked abandoned, windows boarded up. Gas pumps rusted to their bases. An old church leaned sideways like it had been through a storm and never stood up again." Derek pulled over. Engine idling. Something was deeply wrong. His GPS still showed him on Interstate 80. No deviation, no exit. Just straight line freeway. He stepped out of the truck, boots crunching on gravel. The air was cold, not autumn cold, freezer cold. He could see his breath. It smelled like copper and burnt rubber. Then the silence hit him. Not quiet silence, total, suffocating, crushing silence. No wind, no bugs, no engine hum. Even the sky seemed wrong. The stars were missing. The moon was red, not orange, not blood red, but dark red, like a bruise in the sky. And then came the footsteps behind him. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Spun around. Nothing. He turned back toward the church and saw a figure standing in the doorway. It wasn't a person, not quite. Its outline shimmered like heat waves on pavement, but it was shaped like a man, tall, thin, wearing what looked like a preacher's coat. It raised one hand and the church bell rang loud, deafening. Derek stumbled back, hands over his ears. The bell kept ringing, not just sound, but pressure. It pulsed through the ground, up his legs, into his chest, like it was coming from inside him. Then the lights in the town blinked out one by one until only the church remained lit. And the figure was gone. Derek scrambled back into his truck, slammed the door, threw it in reverse, tires screaming, and turned the rig around on that narrow, cracked road. He floored it, but the road didn't end. He drove for 5 minutes, then 10-0. Highway, no ramp, no exit back, just the endless road and the red moon watching. Then he saw a shape. In the middle of the road, a woman standing still, head tilted sideways. Arms slack. Her clothes were tattered like she'd crawled through barbed wire. And her skin, if it was skin, was gray and blistered. Her mouth hung open. No teeth, just a void, blacker than the night around her. He laid on the horn. She didn't move. He swerved, missed her by inches. But when he looked in the mirror, she was gone. Then the GPS chirped, recalculating. The map blinked once and suddenly he was back on I-80, right lane, mile marker 212. His clock read 3:47 a.m. He was covered in sweat. His hands shook on the wheel. He pulled over immediately, left the rig idling, and climbed down. He paced the shoulder, gulping cold air, trying to make sense of what happened. Then he looked up. No red moon, stars were back. Sky normal except there was no exit 212. The road was straight, no ramp, no sign, not even a shoulder wide enough to disguise it. Checked again, his dashcam, his phone, his logs, nothing recorded, just a 19-minute blackout in his GPS trail. He didn't say a word about it to dispatch. He delivered the load to Omaha and drove the entire way back during the day. But he couldn't shake it. He searched online, asked other truckers. Nothing came up, no record of Hollis Junction, no exit 212, until 2 weeks later he got a message on his old CB radio, a weak voice, a whisper, watch the road, they remember you. He smashed the radio. That was 3 years ago. Derek doesn't drive anymore, but sometimes, late at night, he still hears a bell faint somewhere behind him, ringing from a town that no longer exists, or maybe never did, a town that waits on the edge of the highway for the next tired driver to take an exit that's not on any map, but always finds them. He drove for what felt like forever, 30 minutes of cracked blacktop. Still no sign of a turnoff or another vehicle. Derek kept glancing at the fuel gauge. It was dropping faster than usual. He thought maybe the truck was idling too hard, but the needle kept falling. Even the dashboard lights started to dim. Then came the smell, like burnt hair and hot metal, a sharp stink that made his throat tighten. It filled the cab without warning and didn't leave. He rolled down the window to get air, but outside was dead still. No wind, no sound. The road ahead started to change. Again the yellow lines turned dark red, faded and cracked like dried blood. The surface became uneven, like it had been poured in a rush and never cured. Hit a bump so hard the coffee spilled from the cup holder onto his lap. That's when he saw movement in the trees to his right. Not animals, figures. Dozens of them, all identical in size and shape, standing just beyond the tree line, perfectly still. All facing the road, all facing him. Derek's breathing went shallow. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He didn't slow down, not for anything. The CB radio crackled again, only this time it wasn't words. It was a sound, a chorus of distant bells ringing all at once, from every direction. And then a voice, low and trembling. You went too far back. The road is not for you. Derek yelled, shut up, and ripped the CB wire from the socket. But the bells kept ringing from the air, from inside the truck, from behind his teeth. Slammed the brakes and skidded onto the gravel shoulder. The sound stopped instantly, as if it had never happened. Panting and drenched in sweat, he looked out the windshield, and there it was again. Town, only now it looked brand new, clean white houses with lights on, a post office, a diner, neon signs blinking like it was 1952. Children playing in the street. No one noticed the 18-wheeler parked on the edge of town. He watched in stunned silence until a boy turned to look directly at him. The child smiled and bled from his eyes. Derek screamed and floored the gas pedal. This time the truck didn't move. The engine growled, but the tires wouldn't grip. He looked down. The asphalt under the wheels was melting, thick black tar bubbling like hot oil. Truck started sinking, inches at first, then faster. He slammed the gear into reverse. Nothing. The tar crept up the sides of the cab. Then silence again. Everything around him froze, even the air, and from the passenger seat came a whisper. You weren't supposed to leave. He turned slowly. The woman from the road was sitting there, only this time her mouth wasn't just avoided, was open wide enough to swallow his face, and inside her mouth were rows of teeth that went back forever. He blacked out when he came to. He was parked in a rest area off I-80. Sunlight was streaming through the windshield. His watch said 6:48 a.m. His fuel gauge was full. His GPS showed a complete route with no gaps, but his hands were covered in what looked like dried tar, and in the distance a bell was ringing, soft, steady, waiting. Travis Cole had been driving the backroads of New Mexico for over 20 years, But this stretch of highway always made him uneasy. Road that ran past Shiprock, flat and empty, stretching out like a ribbon across the desert. He had finished a late night repair job at a communications tower west of Farmington. The kind of job that required climbing metal ladders in the wind and hoping the snake stayed out of your toolbox now. He was headed home south toward Gallup alone on the road just past midnight. His truck was old, but reliable, a silver Chevy with a CB radio tool chests in the bed, and the smell of burned coffee in the cab. There was no moon, only stars, thousands of them, so clear they almost seemed fake, like someone had painted the sky to keep him distracted. The desert was silent. Even the wind was still. Travis liked that part. Silence meant no trouble. Silence meant peace. But something about tonight felt wrong, off. Like the quiet was too quiet. Like something was watching from the horizon. He glanced at the fuel gauge. Still good. He had another hour of road left. The highway ahead shimmered in the distance. Heat waves even at night common out here. But then the lights appeared, not headlights, not stars, lights in the sky. He slowed the truck and leaned forward. 3 orbs glowing bright, hovering low near the edge of the Shiprock Mesa. At first he thought it was a helicopter. Maybe border patrol. Maybe local search and rescue. But they were silent, too still, and the way they moved, smooth, floating in a triangle pattern, defied logic. He pulled off to the side of the road, got out, stared. The lights began to move closer. Slow, controlled, deliberate. Travis reached for his phone. No signal, no bars, nothing. He tried the CB radio, only static. He stood there, alone, watching. Then one of the lights broke away, drifted toward him. It passed directly overhead, and for a second, everything stopped. The wind, the air, even sound. He could not hear his own breathing, his own heartbeat. Then it was gone, shot back into the sky with a speed that made his stomach turn. The others followed, vanished into the stars like they had never been there at all. He got back into the truck, slammed the door, turned the key. The engine clicked, but would not start again. Clicked, nothing. He turned off the lights, waited, tried again. The engine roared back to life. Dashboard lights flashing like it had been reset. He floored it, tires kicking up dust as he sped back onto the road. CB crackled to life, but it was not a voice, it was static. Then a sound, low, vibrating, almost musical, like a hum beneath the surface of the earth. He turned the knob, nothing changed. The hum grew louder, like it was coming from inside the truck. He turned it off completely, but the sound stayed. He kept driving faster. Now the road ahead curved slightly, something he did not remember. He was certain this stretch was flat. Then the headlights flickered, and the truck shut off mid-drive. The lights died. The radio died. The engine stalled. The tires coasted for a few more feet before stopping completely. He was in total darkness. He tried the key again. Dead. He stepped out, looked around. The stars were gone. The sky above was black. Not clouded, not moonless, just empty, like the sky itself had turned off. He looked back down the road and saw nothing. No road, no truck. He was standing alone in blackness. Then the ground began to shake, not an earthquake. Something else, a rhythm, a pulse like a drum beneath the soil. The sky lit up. A dome of light exploded above the mesa. Red, blue, green. He shielded his eyes, and then it stopped. Everything faded to black again. When he opened his eyes, he was back in his truck, the engine running. Headlights on, dashboard normal, but the road was different. The pavement was darker, old, cracked in places it had never been. The signs were gone. No mile markers, no reflective strips. Just the yellow line stretching forever into the dark. He drove forward slowly, trying to understand what had just happened. He checked his watch. It was 4 a.m. 2 hours had vanished. The CB was silent. The radio dead, his phone still without signal. He kept driving. After 10 minutes, he saw lights ahead, a gas station. Small, old-fashioned, with a flickering sign that read Coleman Fuel and Feed. He had never seen it before, not once in 20 years. He pulled in slowly, parked beneath a rusted light pole. The place looked abandoned, but the lights were on. He stepped inside. The door creaked. The air was musty, smelled like old oil and wood rot. Behind the counter, an old man sat. He looked up, smiled, and said, "Welcome back, Travis. Been a long time, asterisk. Travis froze in the doorway. The old man behind the counter just smiled like he knew something. Travis did not. The inside of the gas station looked like it had not changed in 50 years. Everything was old. The soda machine had glass bottles with faded labels. The candy bars were names Travis had not seen since childhood. Radio behind the counter was playing a slow song, but it was not in English. The melody was low, sad, like a hymn from a funeral. In a language long forgotten, the old man stood up and stepped around the counter, still smiling. "You came back," he said. "Not many do." Travis asked him what this place was, asked what happened on the road. The man only nodded, said, "You saw the lights once, you see. Then they see you." Travis stepped back, his heartbeat rising in his throat. "I need to leave," he said. Man nodded again. "But not everyone leaves the same. Some leave in pieces. Some leave as someone else. Some never leave at all." Travis turned to run back to the VI truck, but the door was gone. In its place was a blank wall made of wood slats and rusted nails. Looked around. No windows, no exits, only that humming radio, and the old man now standing much closer. Eyes were not right. They were too dark, too wide, and they did not blink. "You have been marked," the man said. "They showed you what lies beneath, and you survived it. That makes you dangerous. That makes you theirs." Travis grabbed a shelf and hurled it to the side. Glass shattered across the floor. He ran deeper into the building, through a narrow back hallway that should not have existed. Walls were covered in peeling paint and ancient flyers for bands that never existed. The lights above buzzed and flickered. The end of the hall was a door. He kicked it open and found himself outside. But it was not the desert. It was a valley, flat and endless, lit by the same hovering lights from before, dozens of them forming a circle in the sky above. In the center of the valley stood a structure, a black stone tower reaching up into the dark, and at its base figures moved, not people, not animal shapes, shifting slowly as if underwater. They turned as one and looked at him, though none had eyes. Ran across the cracked earth toward a distant point of light he thought might be a building. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he did not stop, not until the ground vanished beneath him. He fell into darkness, no sound, no wind, just the feeling of falling, endless falling, until he landed on his back in his truck. Engine off, lights off, parked on the side of the highway just outside Gallup. His phone was in his hand, buzzing. New message received. No signal. He opened it. The message had no number, no sender, just one sentence: "You left the gate open." He dropped the phone and looked around. It was morning. The sun had just risen. Birds chirped. A car passed him in the opposite lane. He was back home. He thought. He started the truck. The engine sounded normal. Dashboard lit up. Everything looked the same except the radio. It was off, but the speakers began to hum, a slow vibration that matched the same rhythm from the lights beneath the mesa. Travis stared ahead, gripped the wheel, and drove, not speaking, not blinking, because in the mirror, in the reflection of the morning sun, he saw something behind him in the bed of the truck, a shape, still and silent, watching. Ellie Brooks was not the kind of person who scared easily. She had been through things, flew to war zones, wrote about hurricanes, interviewed fugitives. But that night on Highway 95, nothing prepared her for what she saw. She had been driving since dawn. Cross-country trip, just her camera, a laptop, and her rented red hatchback. The highway stretched through the Nevada desert, straight and empty. Mountains to the west, flat earth to the east. No towns for hours. The sun was gone and the sky was bleeding. Orange into deep purple. The kind of light that made shadows stretch longer than they should. Her phone had no service. Her GPS kept blinking signal lost. But the road was clear. She passed an old gas station, boarded up, graffiti sprayed across the windows. No lights, no movement. She kept going, music off, windows cracked, letting in the warm desert air. Then she saw him, a man standing on the shoulder of the road. No car nearby. No bag, just him. He looked wrong. Not injured, not staggering, just standing facing the highway as if he had been waiting. He wore a faded brown coat, jeans too long, and shoes that looked like they belonged to someone else. She passed. He turned his head, not fast, not slow, just enough to meet her eyes. She felt it in her spine, something ancient, something hollow. She looked forward, told herself to keep going. Do not stop. Do not think about it. But her eyes flicked back to the mirror. He was gone, vanished. Just sand and sagebrush behind her. She checked her speed, 75, too fast for anyone to disappear like that. She gripped the wheel tighter, focused on the road. Another mile passed, then she saw him again, ahead, walking toward her on the side of the road. Same coat, same posture, same man. Her stomach dropped. She passed him a second time, slower now, watching him closely. He turned his head again and smiled, but it was not a smile. It was a stretch of skin pulled too tight, like something pretending to be human. She sped up. Her heart was pounding, her hands slick with sweat. No towns, no lights, no cars, just the road and that man. She tried to call someone, anyone, no service. She turned the radio on static. She checked the GPS again, still blinking, searching for signal. Then the headlights flickered, just once, a soft pulse like something had passed in front of them. Then she saw him again, this time in the middle of the road, standing still. She swerved hard, tires screeching, gravel spraying across the shoulder. The car spun, stopped sideways. She looked up. The road was empty, nothing there, no one. She waited, held her breath, looked in every direction. Silence. She started the car again. It groaned, then turned over. She drove slower now, trying to stay calm. Then up ahead, she saw lights, a building, a diner, small, boxy, lit up like it had just opened. A single car parked outside, an old Cadillac. She pulled in fast, parked beside the car, and rushed to the door. The windows were fogged from the inside, but she could see someone moving behind the counter. She opened the door and stepped inside. The smell hit her, first grease, dust, and something sharp beneath it, like metal or old meat. The man behind the counter looked up, older, gray beard, wearing a cook's apron. Help you, he said, like nothing was wrong. She nodded, forced a smile, said she needed to use the restroom, said she thought someone was following her. He just nodded again and pointed to the hallway behind the register. She walked down the hall, past a faded payphone and a jukebox. With no lights, she entered the restroom, locked the door, and sat on the toilet lid. Her hands were shaking. She could still feel his stare, the man from the road. She pulled out her phone, still no signal. She opened the camera, just to check her reflection. Her face was pale, sweaty, but behind her, in the blurry mirror, was a shape, just for a second gone. Before she could turn, she opened the door, stepped out into the hallway, and saw that the lights were flickering, not just in the hall, everywhere. Diner was darker now. The man behind the counter was gone, and the Cadillac outside had vanished. She stepped into the main room and froze. The booth nearest the window was occupied. A man sitting with his back to her, same coat, same jeans. She whispered, "Hello." Response. She stepped closer and he turned his head. His face was hers. Ellie did not move. She could not. She stood there, frozen, staring at the man in the booth. The man with her face. It was not just a reflection, not a trick of the light. It was her, sitting with her back straight, hands folded, smiling gently, but the eyes were wrong, too wide, too empty, as if they had never seen daylight. She took one step forward. The figure blinked slowly, tilted its head. Then it opened its mouth and began to hum low monotone, the same pitch as the highway hum from her tires, as if it had followed her from the road. Ellie stumbled backward. Her legs hit a chair, and she fell hard to the floor. When she looked up, the booth was empty. The man, the version of her, gone. The diner was silent again, but different. The colors had drained from the walls. Everything was gray, washed out. Even her own hands looked paler under the ceiling lights. She stood slowly, body shaking, breath short. She ran to the front door, tried to pull it open. It would not move, not stuck, just sealed, like it was never meant to open again. She banged her fists against the glass, screamed for help, for anyone, but the desert outside did not move. No cars, no wind, no sound. She turned back to the room and realized the booths were no longer empty. Every table, every seat, now had someone in it. All of them were still facing away. From her heads down, hair hanging, hands on the table, not moving, not breathing. She stepped closer to one, reached out with trembling fingers, touched the shoulder. It was cold, rubbery, not human. She pulled her hand back, heart pounding. Then one of them stood slowly, without lifting its head. It walked toward her. Then another rose, and another, until every figure in the diner was moving, silent, in unison, walking toward her, surrounding her. She screamed, pushed through them, ran to the hallway. The bathroom door was open. Now inside, the mirror was shattered, but there was a message written across the glass in something dark. It said, "You left him behind." She did not know what it meant. She turned back to the diner, but the hallway had changed. It was longer, twisting, darker. The floor was wet, the air thick. A low sound filled the space, not humming, breathing, heavy, slow. Right behind her she ran without looking back. The hallway kept changing. Doors appeared, then vanished. Signs with no words, windows that showed only static. She finally found a staircase spiraling down into black. She had no choice. She descended. Each step groaned beneath her weight. The air grew colder, smelled like wet stone and iron. At the bottom was a door. She opened it and found herself in a desert, but not the one she had driven through. This one was wrong. The sand was dark, the sky purple. No stars, no moon, only a circle of standing figures. Tall, thin, faceless, they stood in a ring around a single object. Her car crashed upside down, smoke rising from the hood. She stumbled forward, saw herself lying across the driver's seat, still, eyes wide, mouth open, dead. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. New message, no number, no signal, just 4 words: "You never left here." She dropped the phone, looked around. The figures began to hum, that same sound again, low, endless. Then the ground split beneath her, and she fell, woke up in the booth of the diner, her head against the table, hands folded, music playing on the jukebox. A waitress standing beside her, morning, hun. You okay? You fell asleep. Ellie blinked, looked around. Everything looked normal, bright, clean, alive. She stood slowly, nodded, said she was fine. The waitress smiled and walked away. Ellie walked out the front door. No problem this time. Her car was parked where she left it, sun rising over the desert. She got in, started the engine, pulled onto the road, but in the mirror the man was standing by the highway, same coat, same posture, watching, waiting, and behind her own reflection in the glass, someone else was sitting in the back seat, smiling. Noah Carter had driven the forest highways of Oregon more times than he could remember. He liked the quiet, the stillness, the way the trees closed in like a tunnel and made the world feel smaller. It was a job, but it gave him peace. He drove deliveries overnight for a local supply company. Simple routes, no cities, just back roads, warehouses, occasional gas stations. Tonight was like any other. He was headed south on Route 207, The sky was dark, no stars, no moon, just blackness and the faint glow of his headlights bouncing off the treetops. The radio was on low, a soft crackling of old country music, more static than sound, but comforting in its own way. The truck was half full. His last drop was an hour ago. Now he was just driving home. The highway curved gently through pine and fir. No signs, no traffic, no interruptions until the fog rolled in. At first it was thin, just a light mist crawling along the road. Then it thickened, it swallowed the trees. The shoulders, the yellow lines. He slowed down, turned on the brights, but the light hit the fog like a wall, reflecting back at him. He flicked the radio knob. Music cut out, replaced by static. Then a voice, not from the station, a whisper calling his name, Noah. He froze, looked at the screen. No channel, no signal, just a blank frequency. No, it said again, closer now, clearer. He shut the radio off, but the whisper kept going, faint, but coming from somewhere inside the truck. He pulled over, turned off the engine, sat there in silence. Fog pressed against the windows like wet hands. He reached for his phone. No bars. He turned the key again. The engine started. The radio stayed dead. He pulled back onto the road, trying to ignore what he had heard, but then he saw an exit ramp unmarked, curving off into the trees on the right. It was not on the map, not on his GPS, not something he had ever seen before. The sign was blank, just a rusted green board with no words. His hands moved on their own. He turned, took the exit, and descended into darkness. The fog grew thicker, swallowed the rear-view mirror, erased the road behind him. The trees were closer now, hanging low, branches brushing against the top of the truck. He should have stopped, should have turned back, but something pulled him forward. The road narrowed, twisted, and then opened. A clearing in the center, a building. It looked like a rest stop, but wrong. Too tall, too narrow, made of old concrete and glass. The lights inside flickered, dim pale green. The parking lot was empty, but a single payphone stood by the door, ringing. He stepped out of the truck, closed the door behind him. The air was freezing. The fog thinned just enough to see the shape of the building clearly. No signs, no logo, no explanation, just a place that should not be there. The phone kept ringing. He walked to it, lifted. The receiver said hello. No answer, just breathing, soft, uneven, right against his earthen. A voice, not his name this time. Just one sentence, you are not supposed to be here. He dropped the phone. It hit the ground. Still ringing. He backed away, turned toward the truck and stopped. There was someone in the driver's seat, a figure still facing forward. He stepped closer, hands shaking, opened the door slowly. No one inside, empty. But the radio was on and playing his voice, his own voice, repeating over and over, "Help me, I cannot get out, I cannot get out." He slammed the door shut, ran toward the building. Doors were open. He stepped inside, and everything changed. Noah stepped through the doorway, and the sound vanished. No wind, no trees, no fog, only silence. The inside of the building looked like a bus terminal. Long rows of empty chairs, flickering lights above a dusty vending machine humming in the corner. He walked slowly, boots echoing against the tile. The air was too still, as if the place had been sealed shut for years. But the floors were clean. No dust, no cobwebs, no sign of decay. A hallway stretched behind the front counter. He called out, "Anyone here?" No answer, only the lights buzzing above. He stepped down the hallway. Doors lined the walls, each one numbered, each one slightly ajar. He peeked into the first. It was a waiting room, chairs, a small table, an old television set, but no power, no remote, just static on the screen. He backed away, moved to the next room, another waiting area, identical down to the placement of chairs. He opened a third door. This one was different. A long mirror filled the back wall, and in it saw himself, but older eyes, sunken face, pale mouth moving, saying something, But no sound. He stepped closer. The reflection did not copy him. It moved on its own, mouthing words. Silent, urgent. Then it stopped, lifted a hand and pointed behind him. He turned and the hallway was empty. He looked back. The mirror was now black only. His current reflection stared back. He ran down the hallway past the doors to the end. There he found a stairwell spiraling downward. He hesitated, but the whispers returned, faint, from above, from below, from inside his own ears. Noah, Noah, you should have stayed on the road. He took a breath and descended. Each step felt heavier. Each turn darker until he reached a single door, metal, unmarked. He pushed it open and found a room lit by a single light bulb swinging from the ceiling. Unmarked. He pushed it open and found a room lit by a single light bulb swinging from the ceiling. Unfound a single light bulb swinging from the ceiling. Found a room lit by a single light bulb. The center of the room a table, and on the table a recorder. He pressed play and heard himself screaming, begging, crying, pleading to be let out. Then another voice: you will listen until it makes sense, and then you will take your turn. Recorder stopped. He stepped back. The door slammed shut behind him. He was trapped. He turned, tried to open it. It would not budge. Then the walls around him began to hum, vibrate a low frequency that made his teeth ache, and the lights blinked. 1, 2, darkness, and in the dark came movement. He could not see it, but he could feel it, the presence of something old, something wrong, getting closer. A whisper brushed his neck. Stay with us forever. Then a hand grabbed his shoulder. He screamed, woke up in his truck parked on the side of the road. The fog was gone. The sky was blue. Birds flew overhead. It was morning. The building was gone. No trace, no ramp, just trees and pavement. He checked his phone for missed calls. A full signal. The radio played soft country music. Normal. He sat there breathing hard, trying to decide if it was real. Then he saw the note on the passenger seat, a cassette tape labeled in red ink, Exit 46, and underneath, your voice is next. Lena Morris was not trying to get anywhere in particular. She was only trying to get away. The highway stretched through the Arizona desert like a scar, twisting through scrub and sand under a sky so wide it felt like it could swallow you whole. It was almost midnight. She'd been driving for 6 hours straight. Headlights cutting through the dark, music off, window cracked just enough to let the wind carry her thoughts away. Highway 93 had been empty for the last hour. Not a single car in either direction. No signs, no towns, only road. The silence was starting to feel heavier than the air itself. Her gas gauge was low. Not empty, but close enough to make her nervous. Then she saw a glowing sign up ahead, rest area next right. She turned without thinking. The exit ramp was narrow, barely lit, winding down into a dirt lot surrounded by desert brush. There was a single structure, a small building with cracked windows, a vending machine humming outside, and a flickering neon light that said rest, stop, open. She parked and killed the engine, stepped out into the warm desert air, stretched her arms, listened. Still nothing. No crickets, no wind, no cars, only the hum of the vending machine and the soft whine of power lines above. She walked toward the building. The door creaked open. When she pushed it, inside was a dim lobby, 2 plastic chairs, a bulletin board filled with yellowing flyers, and a man standing behind a desk. He looked up when she entered, mid-50s, thin hair slicked back, wearing a uniform that was too clean for a place this forgotten evening. He said. Lena nodded. Just passing through. She said. Bathroom is around the corner, he replied, and coffee is fresh, if you like it hot. She thanked him, walked past the desk down a short hall to the restroom. The lights inside were too bright, buzzing overhead. She washed her hands, stared into the mirror. Something about the place made her skin crawl, but she could not say why. She dried her hands and stepped back into the lobby. The man was still there, standing exactly where she left him, but now he was staring, not smiling, not blinking, just watching her. She paused, nodded politely, and walked toward the door. "Have a good night," she said. "Safe travels," he replied. She stepped outside and froze. Her car was gone. The lot was empty. No tire tracks, no footprints, just dirt and stillness. She spun around, looked for another lot. Another turn, nothing, only desert. She ran back inside. The man was gone. The lights dimmed. The walls looked older, as if the place had aged in the last minute. She backed away slowly, and then the lights flickered just once and everything reset. Her car was back. Man was behind the counter again, and the door was swinging open, like she had just arrived. She stepped out, heart pounding, walked to her car, put her hand on the door, paused, looked back. The rest stop was glowing in the dark. Too clean, too still. She opened the door, climbed in, started the engine. The dashboard clock said midnight, same as before. She drove back onto the highway, gripping the wheel tight. But after 5 minutes of driving, she passed the same rest area sign. Rest area, next. Right, she hit the brakes, looked at the fuel gauge. It had not moved. She checked her phone, no service, same as before. She turned on the radio, only static. Then a voice, not from the station, a whisper. "Welcome back, Lena." She turned the wheel, veered back onto the main road, accelerated. Mile after mile passed, but the landscape did not change. And then the ramp appeared again. Rest area next. Right, she screamed, pounded the wheel, kept driving, but the highway bent, curved, forced her back toward the ramp. She tried to fight it, but the car slowed, turned, took the exit on its own, back to the same dirt lot, the same building, the same flickering sign. She stumbled out of the car, ran to the building. This time it was empty. No man, no lights, only shadows, and a voice from the hallway. "You cannot leave until we finish your shift." Asterisk. Lena froze in the middle of the lobby. The voice echoed from the hallway. Not loud, not harsh, but final, like an order that had already been obeyed. "You cannot leave until we finish your shift." She turned toward the hallway, but it was darker now, longer, stretching deeper into the building than it had before. She stepped back, heart racing. Her car was still outside, engine off, lights dim, like it had been waiting to. She ran toward it, tried the handle. It opened. She climbed in, turned the key. The engine sputtered, then died. She tried again. Nothing. Her phone buzzed. She looked down. One new message. It was from a number with no digits, just the word "clock in." She looked back at the rest stop. The neon sign had changed. It no longer said "Rest stop open." Now it read, "Now hiring." The door creaked open, and the man stepped out. Same uniform, same expressionless face. He walked slowly toward her, stopped a few feet from the car. "You were chosen," he said. "You walked through the door. You accepted the position. I never agreed to anything." She shouted. He shook his head, one's eyes glassy and dull. "They do not need agreement. They only need presence." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a name tag. Lena. It said "Employee since 2 a.m." She stared at it. Digital clock on her dashboard clicked. 2 a.m. The man dropped the tag on her lap, then turned around, walked back inside, and vanished into the shadows. Lena sat there for a long time, afraid to move, afraid to blink. Then the radio turned on. A soft voice whispered, "Your shift has begun." She screamed, jumped out of the car, ran into the desert. Sand kicked up around her feet. Thorns scraped her legs, but she did not stop. She ran until the rest stop was gone, until the highway was gone, until only stars remained above her. Then she saw lights. Not headlights, not from the building. These lights moved slowly through the air, changing color. Circling above, they drifted closer, made no sound. She crouched low, covered her head. The lights stopped, hovered above her, and then everything went black. She opened her eyes. Back in the rest stop, behind the desk, wearing the uniform the man stood across from her, smiling. "Welcome to your first break." He said you did well. She looked down. Her name tag glowed faintly. Employee since 2 a.m. She stood slowly. Walked to the window outside. Another car was pulling in. A man stepped out, confused, tired, alone. She turned to the attendant. How long do I stay? She asked. He smiled wider. Until the next one takes your place. The lights outside flickered. The door creaked open, and the man walked in. Daryl Monroe was not supposed to be working that night. He had covered a last-minute shift for a guy named Eddie, someone he barely knew. Someone who did not even ask politely, just texted, "Can you cover tonight? Family emergency." Daryl had nothing else to do, so he said sure. The station sat just outside a town no one ever remembered, one of those spots between highways where trucks passed through but never stayed. The building was old, flat roof, buzzing sign that flickered every few seconds, gas pumps from the 90s, and a cooler in back that always dripped water near the beer shelf. He pulled in at 10:58. Night air warm. Still smelled like burnt oil and desert dust. The only car in the lot was a silver sedan, beaten up, tires balding. One headlight out inside. The lights were too bright, and the man behind the counter looked like he had not slept in a year. "You Daryl?" he asked without looking up. "Yeah, just here to cover." The man nodded, pushed a small clipboard across the counter sign. "Here, initial there, read the sheet." Daryl glanced at the paper. Standard shift handoff, but with a few weird lines added in blue pen. "Do not touch the door to the manager's office. Do not go behind the counter if the register screen turns red. If you hear knocking from the cooler, turn the music up and ignore I've laughed. This a joke?" The man looked up slowly. His eyes were bloodshot, dead serious. "No joke." He stood, grabbed his keys and walked to the door. He paused before leaving. "Do not go near the office, no matter what you hear." Then he was gone. Daryl stood there alone, holding the clipboard, trying to figure out if this was a prank. He checked the clock. 11:12. He had 7 hours to kill. He walked the aisles, cleaned up some old coffee spills, restocked gum and cheap candy. Then he turned on the small radio behind the counter. Soft music filled the air. The night was quiet. Around midnight, a car pulled in. An old man in a blue truck bought gas, paid in cash, left without saying a word. Then nothing for a while, just the hum of lights and the ticking of the wall clock. At 1:23, the register beeped. He looked over. The screen was blinking red. He stared at it, froze. He remembered the note. "Do not go behind the counter if the register turns red." He waited. The screen flashed twice, then returned to normal. He exhaled, wiped his forehead. The music crackled with static, then cleared. He sat on the stool, closed his eyes for just a second, and heard it knocking from the cooler. Not loud, but steady. Knock, pause. Knock, pause. He stood slowly, walked toward the back, heart pounding. He reached the cooler. The air around it felt colder than it should. He turned the music up like the note said. The knocking stopped. He returned to the counter, shaken. What kind of place was this at 2:40? He checked the cameras just to make sure he was not imagining things. The feeds showed every corner of the store aisles. Parking lot, cooler. Then he saw something that made him stop breathing. Camera 4. The break room. It was dark, unlit, but someone was sitting at the table, their face hidden in shadow, hands flat on the surface. Still as a statue, Daryl stared. The feed glitched for a moment. The figure turned its head toward the camera. Then it was gone. The room empty. He flipped to the other feeds. Everything looked normal, but the light above the manager's office was on. He checked the sheet again. Do not touch the office door. He walked down the hallway, careful, quiet. The door stood at the end, closed, light shining beneath. I've leaned in, pressed his ear to the wood. He heard a voice, muffled, low, like someone talking on the phone. He knocked once lightly. The voice stopped. Silence. Then footsteps coming toward the door. He stepped back. The knob turned slightly, then stopped. He waited. but no one. Open-eyed, backed away, heart racing. Returned to the counter. The register screen was red again, but this time it said something. 3 words, "Let it in." Daryl stared at the register screen. "Let it in." The words blinked once, then vanished. The screen turned black, powered off completely. He backed away from the counter, looked around the store, still empty, still quiet. But something felt wrong, like the lights were too dim, like the air had stopped moving. He turned the music up again, but it did not help. There was no comfort in it anymore, just noise. He walked down the aisle, checked each row, each shelf. Then he heard it. Knocking again, but not from the cooler this time, from the manager's office, sharp, louder, as if someone was pounding with both fists. Walked slowly down the hallway, stopped in front of the door. The light was still on, glowing brighter, now bleeding through the bottom crack. He leaned closer, listened, breathing heavy, raspy, just inches away from the other side. Then a voice, "Let me out." Daryl jumped back. It sounded like Eddie, the guy who texted him, the one who asked him to cover the shift. He checked his phone. No new messages, no signal. He turned the knob. It was cold, but unlocked. He paused, then pushed the door open. The light inside was harsh, white, too bright for a room that had no windows. The office was small, desk, filing cabinet, chair knocked over, and in the corner a figure curled into itself, facing the wall, trembling. "Eddie." Daryl stepped closer. "You okay?" The figure did not respond. He reached out, touched its shoulder. It turned slowly, but it was not Eddie. It was something else. The face was wrong, blurred like a bad photograph, eyes too wide, mouth stitched into a smile that did not move. It reached for him. Daryl stumbled backward, fell against the desk, knocked over a stack of papers. The figure stood, but its feet never moved. It glided forward, silently, effortlessly. Daryl crawled out of the room, slammed the door shut, locked it, backed away down the hall. The lights above him flickered one by one. Then he saw the camera feed again. All screens were off except one. The figure now stood at the desk, typing something into the computer. He looked closer. It was filling out a shift handover form. Name, time, new employee. His name appeared on the screen, typed out slowly, Darylh. He ran to the front door, yanked it open, but the parking lot was gone. Nothing outside, only blackness, like the building had been swallowed by shadow. He turned around. The store was filled with fog and silhouettes moving through the aisles, touching the shelves, whispering. He backed against the counter. The register turned on again. "New message. You are the manager now." He screamed, grabbed his phone, tried to call anyone, but the screen showed only one number, not dialed. Incoming. It rang once, then picked up on its own, a voice, low, cracked clock, and the lights went out. When they came back on, Daryl was standing behind the counter, in uniform, clipboard in hand. The clock said 11:58, and outside a car pulled in, headlights cutting through the fog. A man stepped out, walked through the door. "You Daryl?" he asked. "Yeah, just here to cover it." Daryl handed him the clipboard, smiled. "Sign here, initial there, read the sheet." Eric Blaine had not been this far north in years, not since the accident, not since the court dates, not since the silence that followed. He needed quiet, so he packed what he could, left no note, and started driving. The rental cabin near Dead River was supposed to be peaceful. No signal, no neighbors, no one to ask him how he was doing. The road was empty. Fog rolled low across the hills, thick and heavy, like it had been waiting for someone to drive through it. The trees leaned over the pavement, wet and sharp, dripping onto the windshield, as if they were trying to speak. He kept his eyes on the road, one hand on the wheel, the other holding a coffee that had long gone cold. The radio did not work out here. No signal, just soft static that rose and fell like waves. His phone had died an hour ago, but he did not care. He did not want to be found, not anymore. Then he saw the sign last gas before dead river. He slowed. The tank was low, quarter left at best. A single turnoff curved into a gravel lot surrounded by trees. The gas station looked like it had been there forever. Wooden roof, peeling paint. A single flickering light over the door. Two pumps sat beneath a rotted awning, one with a handwritten, out of order, taped to the handle. He parked and stepped out. The cold hit him harder than expected, a sharp sting in the lungs. He zipped up his jacket, walked to the store door, and stepped inside. The bell above the door did not ring. The inside smelled of oil dust and something beneath it, something sweet and rotting. Shelves lined with snacks, old magazines, a soda cooler buzzing too loud. Behind the counter stood a man, old, thin skin stretched too tight, eyes too dark. "Evening," he said. "Just you out tonight?" Eric nodded. "Yeah, on my way to Dead River." The man looked past him out the window. "Ain't much up that way," he said. "You got a full tank almost." Eric said, "Could use a top off." The man nodded, then paused. "Station only takes cash." "That all right?" Eric handed him 2 20s. The man took the bills without looking, slid a single key across the counter. "Pump 2, he said. Eric walked back out. The fog had thickened. He could barely see the trees now. They pressed in against the road, against the station. He filled the tank, watched the meter tick up, listened to the wind. There was a sound low, like something dragging across wet leaves. He turned quickly, but saw nothing, just trees. Just fog. He finished, closed the cap, headed back inside. The man was still there, still standing, still watching. "You going to the cabin?" he asked. Eric froze. "How did you know?" "Ain't much else past Dead River," the man said. "Only thing up there is the cabins." Eric nodded slowly. "Yeah, just taking a few days away." The man leaned forward. "Careful out there," he said. "Sometimes the woods forget which way is out." Eric did not reply. He thanked him, walked back to the car, started the engine, pulled out onto the road. But something felt wrong. The trees looked the same, the fog thicker. He drove for 20 minutes, no turns, no signs. Then the gas station appeared again. Same lot, same lights, same pumps. He stared, checked his GPS. Dead screen. He turned around, backtracked the way he came, watched the road closely, marked every turn, every bump. Then again, the gas station, same as before. He stopped, heart pounding, got out, looked around. No tracks, no movement. He stepped inside. The man behind the counter looked up, smiled. "Pump 2 is ready for you," he said. Eric backed out of the store, got in his car, drove faster this time. 30 minutes, no exits, no changes. Then again, the gas station still waiting. Parked, slammed the door, marched inside. "What is this?" he shouted. "Some kind of joke?" The man just watched him. "You are heading the wrong way," he said. "The woods do not forget, but they do not forgive either." Eric grabbed the counter. "Tell me what this is." Man pointed toward the back of the store. "They want you to see it," he said. Eric turned. A door he had not noticed before stood at the end of the hallway, slightly open beyond it. The trees close and black. He stepped toward it, hand trembling, pushed the door wide and saw the forest waiting, alive, watching. Eric stood at the threshold. The forest beyond the door did not look like any forest he had ever seen. The trees were too close together, too tall. Their trunks stretched upward like black bones, branches twisted like claws above his head. There was no wind, no sound, only a low vibration beneath the soil, like something was breathing underground. He turned back toward the store, but the man behind the counter was gone. Lights inside had shut off, the windows covered in condensation. He looked down. His boots had left no prints in the dirt, as if the ground had swallowed them whole. He stepped forward, 1 foot into the forest, then another. The door shut behind him. Without a sound he kept walking. The path was narrow, barely more than a break in the brush. Every few steps he thought he heard movement, footsteps, breathing, branches creaking. But when he turned, there was nothing. He passed an old fence, rotting wood held together by rusted wire. It ran along his left side for a few yards, then disappeared into the trees on the right. He saw shapes, small stone piles stacked carefully, balanced like graves without names. He stepped over one, and it crumbled as if it had never been there. Then he saw a light, a faint glow ahead, flickering like fire. He moved toward it, carefully, quiet. The path opened into a clearing at the center. A cabin, old rotting roof caved in on one side. The light came from inside, a lantern swinging from the ceiling. He stepped onto the porch. The boards groaned beneath his weight. He pushed the door open inside. Dust hung in the air like smoke. The walls were covered in symbols, scratched deep into the wood. He stepped inside, looked around. A chair, a table, a radio crackling softly, but no source of power. He walked to the table. Papers covered it, pages filled with drawings, circles, eyes, roots growing into veins. Then he saw the mirror, small, cracked, nailed to the wall in its reflection. Someone stood behind him. He turned fast, but the room was empty. He looked back at the mirror. Now it showed only the forest. He stepped closer, touched the glass, and it rippled beneath his fingers like water. He pulled back, heart pounding. Then the radio spoke. "You were supposed to stay gone." He grabbed the table for balance. "Who are you?" he shouted. "What do you want?" The voice replied, "We remember what you did." He turned to the door, but it was gone, just wall now, wood and dirt. The window too had vanished. Only the mirror remained, still showing the forest, still shimmering. He walked to it, fist clenched, breathing hard, and stepped through. For a moment everything was white, then silence. When he opened his eyes, he was back in his car, parked at the gas station. Morning sun rising over the trees, sky pink and gold. He looked around. The lot was empty, the store dark, closed. He stepped out, walked to the pumps. No gas, no sign, no man behind the counter. He checked his phone, battery full, no messages. Then he looked down. His hands were covered in dirt, his boots soaked with mud. In the passenger seat, single page covered in the same symbols from the cabin, and one sentence written in red, "You made it out." But something followed. He turned the key. The engine started. He pulled onto the road, driving faster now, trying not to look in the mirrors. But when he did, he saw the forest behind him, stretching further than it should, and in the reflection, a figure in the back seats, still, smiling, waiting. Marcus Reed had been driving mountain roads for most of his life, but something about Highway 78 after midnight always gave him chills. Maybe it was the fog, maybe the way the cliffs dropped off without warning, or maybe the fact that the state rarely sent workers up here after dark. Too dangerous, too remote, too quiet. But tonight he was on contract. One final haul before winter set in. He was moving steel barriers to a roadwork zone near mile marker 124, right past the last turn before the forest swallowed the highway. The cab was warm, radio crackling low, a thermos of cheap coffee in the passenger seat. Mountains rose around him, black shapes in the mist, snow already dusting the tops. The headlights cut through the fog, revealing slivers of road, one patch at a time. Then he saw the signs: construction ahead, reduced speed, flagger present. He slowed the rig, looked around. Up ahead, orange cones, warning lights, and a crew, 6, maybe 7 people in bright yellow vests, hard hats, standing in a perfect line beside the barriers. They did not move. No one waved him down, no one gave directions. He rolled to a stop, lowered his window. The air outside was freezing, the kind that bites your skin in seconds. He called out, "You guys need me to drop this here?" No response. He looked closer. They were all facing the road, but not looking at him, not blinking, just standing still as mannequins. He felt his chest tighten. He turned on his radio. Called dispatch. Hey, I am at the drop site there. Is a crew here? But something is off. Silence. Then a reply. Marcus, there's no crew scheduled tonight. They finished 3 days ago. You are alone up there. He looked back at the figures. One of them tilted its head, just slightly, like it had heard the call. 2. Marcus said nothing. Put the rig back in gear. Pulled forward slowly as he passed. None of them moved, but their heads all turned in unison. Watching him, he kept driving fast as he could. A few minutes later, he reached the end of the marked zone. No vehicles, no equipment, just more fog and empty road. He stopped again, stepped out, walked around back to check the load. Still secure, no damage. He lit a cigarette, tried to calm down. Maybe they were real workers. Maybe something got mixed up. Maybe he was just tired. He took a deep breath, tried to laugh it off. Then he saw Ida's set of footprints in the frost. Bare feet, not boots, leading off the road. Into the trees. He followed them with his eyes. They went straight into the dark. No path, no trail. He crushed the cigarette, climbed back in, turned the truck around. As he passed the zone again, the crew was gone. No cones, no lights, no signs, just road. He hit the radio. You sure no one's up here? He asked. Dispatch replied. Marcus, you are the only one assigned north of Glenbrook tonight. If something is wrong, get out of there. He kept driving, but now he watched the trees, the spaces between them, the gaps in the mist. Something moved out there. Something slow. Then, around mile 117, he saw the lights. Again, not headlights, work lights. Big orange glows set up around a curve. Exactly like before, and the crew back in formation. Same spots, same stances, but now they were digging, each one with a shovel, moving in perfect rhythm, even though there was no dirt, just pavement. He stopped again, opened the door, called out, hello. The nearest figure looked up and stepped forward. Marcus raised a flashlight, shined it on the face. What he saw was not a face. It was skin stretched too tight. No eyes, no mouth, only the outline of something that used to be human. It reached out, and the others stopped digging. They turned slowly, one by one. He jumped back into the cab, slammed the door, spun the rig around as he drove. He looked in the mirror. The crew was still watching, but now one of them was walking after him, not running, just walking, but never slowing, never fading into the dark. The radio turned on again, but it was not dispatch, just a whisper. You should not have come here. He turned it off, checked the clock. It had not changed still. 12:15. Even though he had been driving for over an hour, he reached the last turnout, pulled into the gravel, killed the lights, waited. The forest around him pulsed with silence. Then a sound, metal on stone, digging closer. Now he grabbed the flashlight, stepped out quietly, followed the sound around the trees, and saw them again digging into frozen ground, in a circle around something large and buried. One of them looked up, lifted a hand, and pointed at him. Marcus did not move. The figure kept pointing, unblinking. Still, as the others continued to dig, he stepped back slowly, boots crunching over the frost, and the digging stopped. Every head turned toward him, in perfect silence. Then they stood one by one and began walking in his direction. He turned, ran back to the truck, climbed in, slammed the door, started the engine. Nothing. The key turned, but the engine only clicked once, twice, then silence. The radio crackled to life. Not his voice, not dispatch, just a sound, shovels, dirt, bones shifting. Then a whisper, you were not supposed to see. You threw the door open, ran down the gravel path into the trees, away from the road. The cold wrapped around him, bit deep into his chest. But he kept going. Branches clawed at his arms, mud pulled at his shoes behind him. Footsteps, not fast, but steady, never breaking rhythm. He found a ridge, climbed it, looked back. The crew had followed him off the road. Their vests glowed faintly in the dark, but their faces stayed in shadow. Still walking, still watching. He turned away, kept climbing until he reached the top and found another road, old, cracked, half buried under dirt and moss. It was not on any map he remembered, but it felt familiar. He followed it until he saw light, a cabin, small slanted window glowing with firelight. He ran to the door, knocked hard. A voice inside. "Come in." He pushed the door open. Inside, warm, smelling of smoke and something like herbs. An old man sat by the fire, stirring something in a pot. "You found the path," he said. "Most never do." Marcus tried to speak, but nothing came out. The man pointed to a chair. "Sit before they find you again." Marcus sat. The fire crackled, the pot steamed. They'd come from the place where the road was cut. The man said, "From where the old land bled into the new. They died under orders and never got to leave. Now they wait for anyone who drives too far or sees too much." "What do they want?" Marcus whispered. "A replacement," the man said. "A name to write in the dirt. They dig until one answers, and I did." Marcus said. Man nodded slowly. "Then you must choose." "What choice?" Marcus asked. Man stood, handed him a piece of paper. On it, a list of names at the top, his own underneath. Names he did not recognize, but one looked familiar. "They dispatch a." Marcus stared at the fire. The man said nothing, just waited. The door rattled once, then again. "Are here," the man said. "Time is running out." Marcus took the pen, hesitated, then crossed out his own name and wrote another. The paper burned instantly, flames dancing without smoke. The rattling stopped. Silence returned outside. The frost melted. The footsteps faded. "You will wake soon," the man said, "but you will not remember the path, only the road and the warning. Do not stop for them again." Marcus blinked when he opened his eyes. He was in the truck, engine running, radio low, sun rising over the mountains. No cones, no crew, just open road. He checked the clock, 7:04. He checked the mirror, nothing behind him, but on the seat beside him, a piece of paper with only one word written in black ink: "Thank you." Haley Torres loved places people forgot, abandoned towns, dusty roads, empty signs that once told stories. She drove west through Nevada, following a stretch of highway that barely existed on the map. It was late afternoon, sun casting long shadows across the desert floor, her old Toyota rattling as she passed one boarded gas station after another. Silence out here was different, thick, heavy, alive. She kept her camera on the passenger seat, always ready for the next shot. Most people saw nothing out here. She saw ghosts in architecture, faded logos, signs that still stood even though their stores had long since crumbled. She passed an old motel with its windows shattered, snapped a photo, a rusted diner with the roof half collapsed. Another photo, then she saw Ida billboard on the horizon, too far to read, but massive, still upright. She slowed, pulled off onto the gravel shoulder, got out, camera in hand. The wind blew soft and dry, tugging at her jacket, carrying the scent of dust and heat. She walked closer to the sign. It stood at least 30 feet tall, wooden, weathered. The paint was mostly gone, but the outline of an old advertisement remained, a family smiling, a car in the background. Some words she could not quite read. She lifted her camera, took the shot, looked at the screen and stopped. There was something inside the billboard, behind the wood slats, behind the image, a shape, just barely visible, dark, human-sized, pressed close to the inner wall of the sign. She blinked, looked up from the camera, nothing there. She looked back at the photo. The figure was still there, still watching, still waiting. She stepped back, tried to zoom in, but the shape was gone. The image was blank again, only the faded paint, the sun, the desert. She shook her head. Maybe it was shadow, or the heat, or her eyes. She got back in the car, started the engine, drove another mile, another billboard, different image. This one for an old casino, bright colors that should not have survived the sun. She looked up and her breath caught in her throat. Same shape visible in the center of the board, inside the structure. Still as stone, she reached for her camera. Snapped a picture, looked down. This time there were two figures, one behind the billboard, and one standing near her car. She spun around, no one there. The desert stretched on, empty, quiet, unbroken. She looked back at the camera now. Three figures. The third one was blurry. Mid-step, like it had just started walking. She powered the camera off, threw it in the seat beside her, drove faster. The next billboard came 5 minutes later. She did not look at, did not slow, but she saw the shadow move across its base, even in her peripheral vision. Even without turning her head, she kept driving. An hour later, she reached a small town, barely more than a diner, and a gas pump. She filled the tank, got coffee, sat inside the booth by the window. She opened her camera, scrolled through the photos. The original shots were gone, replaced by new ones. Each billboard, each angle now showed dozens of figures crowded together. Behind the signs, pressed against the wooden backs, hands against the boards, no eyes, no mouths, just outlines of people who should not be there. In the last photo, one stood directly behind her, its head tilted, as if studying her, waiting. She asked the waitress, "Hey, you know who maintains those billboards down the road?" Woman frowned. "No one," she said. "Those have been dead for decades." Haley left cash on the table, got in her car, turned back toward the highway. She had to see it again, the first sign. She had to know if she imagined it, or if something really was behind the wood. She reached the first billboard just before sunset. The light was gold. Long shadows cast across the road. She parked, got out, walked to the back of the Cigna. Small ladder, old metal, bolted into the support beams. She hesitated, then climbed. Each step creaked, groaned, rust flaking beneath her boots. She reached the platform, pulled herself up. The wood behind the ad was thick, cracked in places, nailed tight in others. She ran her fingers along the edge, then found the seam, a small gap where two boards had split. She knelt, pressed her eye to it. Darkness inside, stale air, then movement. A face inches from hers, no features, just skin, tight and smooth, pressed against the slats. Then it smiled. Haley fell backward. Her boots slipped on the metal edge. She landed hard on the platform, eyes still fixed on the gap, but the face was gone. Only darkness stared back. She scrambled to her feet, climbed down fast, boots hitting the gravel with a thud. The sun had dropped behind the hills. Shadows stretched longer than they should. She backed away from the sign, one hand on her keys, the other shaking. Then her camera beeped. She looked down. It had turned itself on. A new photo appeared on the screen, a close-up of her face taken from just inches away. She had not taken it. Behind her in the image, a pale hand rested on her shoulder. She turned around. No one. She got in the car, locked the doors, started driving faster than before. The desert flew past in streaks of orange and gray. She passed the next billboard. This time, the figures stood outside the structure, not behind it, not hidden in plain view, still as statues. She drove faster. Another sign, more figures closer to the road now, facing her directly, all of them identical, featureless, watching. She shut off the camera, stuffed it in the glove box, but it powered back on screen, glowing through the cracks. Pulled over, threw it into the desert, watched it land in the sand, screen still glowing. She stepped back into the car, then heard a whisper, not from outside, from the speakers. The radio was off, no power, but the whisper grew louder. "You saw us." She slammed her fist against the dash, turned the key. The car sputtered, then roared back to life. She drove until the sign stopped, until the highway narrowed and the stars came out. She pulled into a rest area, empty, dark, silence. She locked the doors, curled up in the back seat, tried to sleep, But dreams came fast, signs twisting, wood cracking, hands reaching from behind walls, mouths with no faces, eyes that did not blink. She woke just before dawn, eyes burning, heart pounding. She sat up, looked out the window, and froze across the lot. A new billboard stood it. Had not been there before. No poles, no bolts, just standing in the dirt, its face blank, pure white, and behind the surface movement. She started the car, hit the gas, did not look back. She reached the edge of a small town by sunrise, pulled into a diner, ordered coffee, asked the man behind the counter, "What is with all the signs on the highway?" He raised an eyebrow. "What signs?" "The billboards," she said, "dozens of them." He shook his head. "That stretch has been empty since the 80s. All the ads came down after the mining companies left." She pulled out her phone, opened the gallery. It was empty. Every image gone, except one, a photo of her sleeping in the car taken from outside the window. She whispered no. Behind her reflection in the glass, a group of shapes stood by the road, one of them closer than the others, reaching toward the door. She left money on the counter, got back in the car. She drove west, left the highway, took the long way home. Months passed. She stopped taking photos, stopped traveling. But sometimes when the wind is right, she hears a low hum in her house, like electricity or static, and when she passes mirrors at night, she swears she sees signs in the reflection, empty, white signs with someone standing behind them smiling. Jonah Hill needed the silence more than anything. After 17 straight shifts, after holding hands through final breaths, after 2 crash carts and 1 mother who would not stop screaming, he needed silence. He booked the cabin without thinking. Last minute, West Virginia hills, no neighbors, no Wi-Fi, no signal, just a road, a bed, and a window. The drive up was peaceful, late September air, leaves burning red and gold. The mountains curled around the road like arms. He reached the gate just after 4, unlatched the old chain, rolled up the gravel drive. The cabin was small, 2 rooms, wooden deck, and a single large window facing the road. He parked, stepped out, breath deep. The world was still, the way only forests get. No cars, no voices, only wind brushing pine needles. He unpacked, made coffee, sat on the couch in front of the window. The view was strange. Not the trees, not the distant hill. The road, it ran just 20 feet in front of the glass, straight and narrow and empty, perfectly paved, no cracks, no markings, no tire tracks. He watched it as the sun dipped, as the sky bled into dusk, as shadows began to stretch. No cars passed, not one. He turned on the fireplace, lit the stove, ate quietly, tried to read, but he kept glancing out the window. The road felt too still, like something waiting to breathe. That night he went to bed early. The silence inside the cabin wrapped around him like a blanket, so thick he could hear his own blood in his ears. But he did not sleep long. At 2:16, he woke up. No sound, no reason. He walked into the main room, looked out the window, and saw something, a figure standing in the middle of the road, not moving, not walking, just standing, arms at its sides, facing the cabin. It was too far to see clearly, but tall, thin, wearing something dark. He stood there for 10 minutes, eyes fixed on it, then blinked. It was gone. He turned on every light, checked the locks, paced the floor. Eventually, he fell asleep on the couch, TV static humming in the background. The next morning he blamed the dream, just stress, just a tired mind, nothing more. But that night at 2:16, he woke again, and the figure was back, closer this time, standing directly in the beam of moonlight, its shape sharper, its outline more real. He did not blink. He wanted to, but he refused. 15 minutes passed, then 20, and then it stepped backward and vanished. He stayed up till sunrise. He made coffee with shaking hands, ate cold eggs he could not taste, did not leave the cabin that afternoon. He stood by the window, studied The road still perfect, still empty, no dust, no cracks, like it was never used. He threw a rock onto it. No echo, no bounce. The rock simply stopped. Rolled once, then stayed still that night. He tried to sleep in the back room, closed every door, pulled the blanket over his head, but still at 2:16, he woke up. This time he did not go to the window. He stayed in bed, breathing fast, but the room changed colder, smaller. He felt it before he saw it, the glass beside his bed, his reflection faint, and outside it, the figure not. On the road in the yard 10 feet away, Jonah sat up slowly, eyes locked on the glass. The figure was closer now, standing just beyond the porch. Still not moving, still watching. No features, no face, only shadow shaped like a man. The cold pressed in through the glass, seeping through the cabin like smoke, creeping down the hallway, clinging to the floor. He got up, turned on every light, but the cabin stayed dim. Like the darkness outside had bled into the walls. He walked to the window, fought the urge to run. His breath fogged the glass, but the figure remained still. He raised his hand, tapped the glass once. The figure tilted its head, slow, deliberate. Wrong. Jonah stepped back. The figure stepped forward 1 foot, then another. Without moving its legs, it glided, turned, ran to the kitchen, grabbed his keys, opened the front door. The night hit him like a wave. Too quiet, too cold, too deep. The figure was gone. The road was empty again. The trees silent. He got in the car, started the engine. The dashboard flickered, then died. The battery was fine. He had checked it earlier, but the engine would not turn over. He stepped out, slammed the door, shouted into the night, "Who are you? What do you want?" No answer, only the echo of his own voice. Muffled by the fog, he walked back into the cabin, locked the door, closed every curtain, sat on the floor in the kitchen, back against the wall, knife in his hand. He stayed there until the sun rose. When he finally looked outside, the road was gone, not covered, not hidden, gone in its place. A stretch of woods he did not recognize, dense, wet, colorless. He opened the door where the porch should be. Only roots, only leaves, only dark earth. He stepped back, shut the door, checked his phone again. Still no signal. He opened the laptop. No Wi-Fi, no power. The lights in the cabin flickered once, then stayed dim. He walked from room to room, each one quieter than before, each shadow longer, deeper. When he returned to the window, the glass was gone, shattered inward, a cold wind blowing through the space. He leaned outside, looked around. The forest surrounded the house, now thick, close breathing, and in the center of the trees, where the road once ran, the figure stood, arms raised like it was waiting to be welcomed. Jonah backed away, closed the window with a blanket, tried to find something to cover the cold. Then he noticed something on the wall, a photo framed, faded, a picture of the cabin, but older, with someone standing in the window staring out, just like he had done. The man in the photo looked like him, same face, same clothes. He pulled the photo down, looked at the back, a date written in pencil, October 16th, 1992. Dropped the frame, that shattered across the floor, glass scattering across his feet. Behind him, the whisper returned, not a sound, not a word, but a message. "You are the window." Now he turned toward the living room, and the figure was inside, standing in the center of the cabin. Head low, hands twitching like wires. Jonah could not move. He tried to scream, but nothing came out. The lights blinked once, twice, then darkness. When he woke, it was morning. The cabin was quiet, the glass replaced, the road visible again. The sun cast long golden light across the highway. He walked to the window, sat in the chair, watched the road. Nothing moved, but he knew it would tonight at 2:16, because the window always waits. You have reached the end. Not everyone does. These stories were shared, so the next time your GPS leads you somewhere unfamiliar, You will know what not to ignore. Strange exits, silent towns, voices behind your mirrors. They do not want you to hear these things, but you did. Thanks for watching, and if you are still here, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and leave a comment below. We will be watching until next time. Drive safe, stay alert, and never trust the road that feels too quiet.